The best way to get better is to practice. And in this example, we are going to create a form for ordering something on a website. As always, this file is available for download using the link provided below in the description. We'll give you about 5 seconds so you can download it, and then you can either attempt it on your own and check your answer at the end, or follow along with us. All right, so let's get started. We've got a couple of to-dos listed in an HTML comment right above a form tag. So we're not going to worry about the form handler. We're just going to create our form using a series of HTML tags. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a hidden HTML tag. Now, what's sometimes referred to as a hidden tag is actually an input tag of type hidden. This means that it's not going to be seen by the web user. It's going to be hidden from them. So we might use these hidden HTML form fields for a variety of different things. SKU like we see here, maybe some spam comment type of detectors, different types of things like that. Now that I have my type, I need my name. I'm going to simply call it SKU, and then I'm going to give it an initial value. I don't need to give it an ID unless I'm going to be using JavaScript for it to be referenced later on. Okay, so next thing we're going to do is we assume that we already know things like the product type and the quantity and stuff like that. What we're going to look at is some other options. For example, is there a size? I'm going to create a div, and then I'm going to have a label. And this label is going to be for my product size. I'm not using the for attribute because each one of my elements is going to have its own label. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and say label. And then inside my label, I'm going to give it the input tag, type, radio. Name, in this case, is going to be size. And then after my input tag, I'm going to put the size. So small. Now, how does it know that I selected this one? Well, very simply, I'm going to come over here and inside my input tag, I'm going to put value small. Now, this associates the label with my input radio button because they're right there together. And each radio option is going to have its own label. Now, how does it know if I have multiple radio buttons, which one was selected? I'll use the same name for all of them. So, size. In this case, value is going to be medium. And let's say that I want this to be the default. Well, I'm going to say selected. Close that and put in medium. Choose one more label, one more input, type, radio, name, size, value large, and then we put the value for our radio button that we can see. Okay. Notice I don't need IDs for these unless I'm going to once again be using script tags and use a script to control them. But for radio buttons, we don't typically need them. Next, I want to have a drop-down menu for the value of my quantity. How many do I want to have? So I can have a new div tag, label, for, and I'm going to abbreviate quantity to be QTY. And now I'm going to use a select tag. As always, I'll have my name and my ID to be the same. They don't have to be. It just makes it a little bit easier. And you'll notice that I have a closing select tag, but I've not given it values. Well, what I'm going to do is simply create a new tag called an option tag. And I can specify a value, 1, I have a closing option tag, and I have what is displayed. You can think of what's inside of my option tag almost like the label, because it's what we view, the values what actually gets passed to the server. Now, I can have an option tag here with no value, and I put a 2 in which case the value that it's sent is what's in between my option tag. And for simple things like this, where I just have numbers, 1, 2, 3, etc., this might be my best option. I'm going to create a couple extra of these, which is copy and paste, and put 3, 4, and 5, nice and easy like this. My last thing I'm going to do is create a checkbox for overnight shipping. So I use a new div. I'm going to create a label. And similar to how I did with my radio buttons, I don't typically use a for attribute with this label because I'm going to wrap the entire thing inside my label. I do not have to, but this is typically how we do it. With a radio button, typically we see the radio button and then the text beside it. In a checkbox, we normally see the label text and then the checkbox. So I'm going to put in to my label here. Overnight shipping, input, type, checkbox, value, yes. Now, how do we know if it's already checked? Well, quite simply, what will happen is that we are going to only send the checkbox information if it is selected. If it's not selected, it doesn't get sent. Finally, we're going to have a submit button. So one more div, button of type submit, and in between our button tags, we're going to have order product. Come over here, my file panel, right click, reveal in File Explorer, double click on my file. You notice that medium is pre-selected because we said it was checked. I can choose small, medium gets unselected, choose large, small gets unselected. That's the way radio buttons typically work. My default for my drop-down is usually my first element. I can use a selected attribute to choose a different one. I have my overnight shipping, so checkbox. And what's nice about using the labels with our checkbox and radio button is I can click anywhere in the label and it works. I don't have to click on that tiny little box or tiny little circle. I then can use my order product button and make it go order. Now, I can use CSS to completely change the way these look if I want to. However, I don't have to. I can use the defaults if I want to, but typically we will modify them a little bit just to make them look a little bit nicer and easier for our people to use. Throughout this series, this is everything that you basically need to do to create most websites. Hopefully you found this helpful for you. Good luck creating your websites.